Okay, so it probably makes sense to talk about why we started here. I mean, the car's already apart. Well, this is an opportunity to really see the fun stuff. This is everything we had to take apart to get to where we are. We had to take the wheels off, the fender liners, the intercoolers, the intake manifold, the turbos, the brakes, the CV axles, the turbo heat shields, just everything here, wiring harnesses and plumbing and vacuum equipment. Wow, there's just so much here. When it's coming off, it doesn't seem like that much, but when you see it like this, it's like, wow, okay. But now that all this is off, this is where we are. We've got the 3.8 liter McLaren V8 twin turbocharged engine in its stock form. It makes 625 horsepower. And the package that we're doing to it right now is kind of a good known recipe. We didn't come up with the recipe. It's been tried and true. And it makes about 950 at the crank, maybe 850 at the tire. We're going to limit the torque on this build because we do know that we're still riding on the stock lower half of the engine, the bottom end. And that bottom end is good for about 600 foot-pounds of torque reliably at these power levels. If we go more, we're going to be just pushing it too much. And for a street car, that doesn't make sense. We're not trying to set any records. We're trying to have a lot of fun.
We're having fun here, aren't we?
Okay, so this build's a lot of fun. We've got a lot of hard parts going on. As a matter of fact, you see Shamar over here is actually laying some of them out so we can kind of make a nice little picture. But this is probably the most interesting part that gets the least amount of acknowledgement, and that's the tuning. M Engineering, of course, is doing the tuning for the car. We exclusively use them if we're going to tune a car. We just kind of believe that they've got so many safety protocols and experience with the McLaren platform. Why go anywhere else? But so we're going to get into this. This will be an exciting part. We're also going to be doing some custom dyno tuning. So not only is the computer set up to run our bigger injectors and all the extra horsepower we're going to make, but we're going to dyno tune it so that we get it dialed in exactly and get all the power we want. So we get to open it up. This is kind of what I'm waiting on. It's exciting. We know it's just the same computer we just sent out. What's really cool is I can overnight this to M Engineering. They will do their job and they'll send it back the very next day. 3-day turnaround time. So here we go. We've got the computer ready to go. This is the stock computer. It's going back in the car. It's already been programmed now for our bigger injectors, which will give us the ability to get to the dyno and make some power. There's something else in here. I'm not sure. Oh my gosh. All right. Looks like we got a little bit of swag. We got our M Engineering key tag. That is nice. That's all embroidered. Wow. Yes, sir. That's mine. And a couple stickers so we can be proud of what we got. And of course, M Engineering comes with a software platform that allows you to be able to run diagnostic codes, put the car into dyno mode so that you can actually dyno tune the car without the car going crazy. You can reflash your computer now that it's been unlocked. You can reflash your computer with this little module. They can just send you a file over the internet. So wow, the flexibility is just amazing with this platform. Really excited to get it all going. There it is. Okay, so the early suspension on these cars, this suspension is 10 years old. The rubber will actually start to deteriorate between here on the upper A-arms, and it'll cause a squeaking or kind of a clunking sound when you go over speed breakers and things like that. We're going to just go ahead and replace these. We've got new ones right over here. Probably saw them. Brand new ones. While we're working on the car, we're going to replace those. And the other things that we're going to do. We talked about the upgraded exhaust system that gives us much more flow. We're going to have obviously more air flowing through the engine, but we've also got these absolute Renaissance speed intercoolers, upgraded intercoolers. They're denser cores, they're higher quality than the factory, and they've got a party trick. They already have a bung welded into them for our methanol injection kit. Each one does. So that'll allow us to increase our octane without spending money for race fuel. We're using Injector Dynamics 1050X injectors. This is the way to go if you're working on a McLaren. They're probably the authority for these cars at the moment. This is kind of a neat item that we were sent by Spool Performance, and this is going to be fuel rails. I don't think they're necessary at the power level we're at, but we're going to see if we can incorporate these into the build as well. They're really cool. We will have to do some custom plumbing if we actually use these. Also, M Engineering, we talked about the ECU. It's already tuned with a baseline for our 1050X injector so we can start the car after we're done. Also, we've decided my car has the very desirable factory sport exhaust. You can tell it's a sport exhaust because it has the H pattern here and not just one big clunky looking muffler. Now, in later years on the McLaren 12C, when it became a Spider, if you got the sport exhaust, it also included a muffler resonating chamber, hollow inside, but it actually changes the resonation. And when we're going to these higher power levels and we have these high flow 3.5-inch downpipes, the car can tend to pick up a rasp around 3,000 RPM unless you do a different rear section. We're going to choose this Spider rear section and see what kind of sound we get. Something else that's really cool. This is a product that we have available. It's brand new, but this is a battery module simulator. Inside the McLaren battery, this is a factory battery. This is a very expensive battery. We're talking on the magnitude of thousands of dollars. This battery has a little computer inside. It tends to be fragile, and what will happen, people will jump start their car for whatever reason, the battery dies, they let it sit and it gets flat, they'll jump start the car or some other event will happen and it'll burn up the little module inside. This module is very clever. It's going to allow us to choose the appropriate connector for this battery, and then we put it right on that lead. You've got two wires, ground and positive, and this is the same computer that's inside, but it emulates it outside. Now I can use any battery I want to, and that's something I want to do because my car's almost 11 years old, and that battery's already had a long life. It's at the end of it. We're going to go ahead and upgrade it and put a more modern lithium-ion battery in the car. And to that point, we also want to use new gaskets. We're taking a lot of stuff apart. The gaskets that go on the end of the downpipes to the turbos, between the turbo and there, we're putting fresh ones in. We've got new CD output shaft seal gaskets. We've got new front and rear main seals. We've got new turbo gaskets. We got oil pump housing gaskets. We got water pump housing gaskets. Everything's going to get new gaskets because, let's admit it, we don't want stuff dripping out of our cool car when we're hanging out in the parking lot or going to the car meet or going to the track, right? We want it to be nice. Also, the transmission is very strong on these cars. This thing is, I can't say bulletproof, but it'll take a lot of abuse and just keep going. We want to give it a good service. There are two filters, one for the transmission fluid and one for the clutch fluid. It is a wet clutch. We'll be replacing both filters, brand new fluids inside, making sure our fluid levels are correct. This is just good policy, right? Of course, you want to put in fresh oil after you do some work. We're going to do fresh fluids in the transmission as well. And of course, as we kind of come to some of the other things the car could use, over time, the car has a driveline dampener, and what it does is it absorbs the pulses of the engine firing before that torque is transmitted into the transmission. This is the new style. This is the old style. Here's what happens to this thing. You can see the spring right here. Look at that. The spring starts eating into the body. The spring starts wearing out, and eventually the tip of the spring just breaks off. That one's broken. See how loose the spring is? Now the tip of the spring is bouncing around inside like a roulette wheel. It will land in the teeth of the starter, and if you look at these teeth, you can see it's been grinding against it, and it locks up and the car just won't go. This design's faulty. Every early McLaren up until 2016, maybe even later, had this. We're going to go ahead and upgrade it with the new style. Super important to know, this is the old bolt. The old bolt has a head that's too tall. This is the new bolt if you use the new style. If you do this, ensure you get the new bolts and they're shorter. If not, you're going to have a bad time. That's all I can tell you. It's going to be a bad day. Also, new coil pack spark plugs were in here. Let's go ahead and freshen everything up. We're going to put the car ready to perform. Well, I'm excited now. We've kind of walked through a lot of the parts. It's time for us to go and actually spin the wrenches and make it happen. All right, so part of the reason we went ahead and dropped the engine, we knew we were just swapping the turbos, but I just bought this car a couple months ago. I really don't know everything, the full history on it, so I wanted to take the opportunity while the engine's out. We knew we were doing the cam phasers right here on the front of the engine, but we also want to inspect some areas that we know can be problems. Sometimes some of these early cars, they would have a finger follower break, and here's what it looks like. This is the finger follower. It rides on top of the valve spring right there. There's a finger follower. And the cam lobe, as it comes around, it pushes the follower up and down, moving the valve spring. The problem is, if you have an oiling issue, usually caused by poor maintenance, this cam phaser starts to wear out prematurely first, and one of these finger followers may actually break. If you look at this unit I have right here, here it is. This is the issue. The finger follower will break right off, it'll snap, and what will happen is the valve will actually fully close. The cam lobe can no longer touch it, and so that valve, any one of the four, could just be closed, which means you no longer have the correct airflow. You could be down 50 to 70 horsepower from that alone and never know it because the car is already so powerful. This is something that we've inspected all of these on both sides, and I'm happy to say they're all good. And this is another telltale sign on the cam phasers. We can see the two phasers here on the driver's side bank. As we come in closer and we look at the alignment marks for the camshafts themselves, we're going to line these up with the tools in a minute. We can definitely see this camshaft here is already out of time. It's off a few degrees. It's wearing out. We can see that with the gap, the light right there in the gap. That should be perfectly flat. We've reached a really incredible milestone. So excited. Right now I can say that the engine is completely reassembled. Okay, this is going to be the very first cold start with the new engine and everything done. Go ahead, Shamar.